you were asked about the time that Officer Tao touched you, put his hand on your chest.
Correct.
And your reaction was what?
Immediately swiped his hand because I felt threatened, and then I stepped back and I put my hands forward, and I really was threatened by his presence. So again, I put my hands up, didn't know what else was going to move forward, and I proceeded to step back.
So
I know you backed up to demonstrate, but if you could move back up.
Oh, sorry. Yep.
Oh, no problem. I think we heard you, so you're fine.
just got to stay close to the microphone. So you didn't want Officer Tao touching you,
Not at all.
and other than pushing his hand away, you didn't touch him.
Not at all. We kind of just.
And then you went back up on the curb.
That's correct.
During your cross-examination, you used the term the officer's retreat.
Correct.
What did you mean by that retreat?
What I mean is I'm not a law enforcement or by any means, but I know I see when certain cases happen, when it comes to certain things like this, most of the officers retreat away from the scene until all the right authorities come on scene to take care of everything. And that's what I noticed that they did. They retreated away from the scene to the other side of the street, and that's where they stayed until whoever came and deal with them.
Okay. Also, during your cross-examination, Mr. Nelson asked you about things that happened before you got to the scene.
That's correct.
You weren't at all trying to tell the jury in your previous testimony that you knew things that occurred before you got there.
Nah, not at all. I was deer in the headlights.
But when you got there, for that time period after you arrived and saw Mr. Chauvin with his knee on Mr. Floyd's neck on the ground there, until the ambulance took him, you watched that entire time.
I watched everything.
And so during that time that you were watching, did you see anything that you thought justified holding Mr. Floyd down that way?
No, at all.
Answer is stricken.
Did you see Mr. Floyd fighting back to the officers?
No.
Did you see whether Mr. Floyd lost consciousness while you were there watching?
Correct.
Your Honor.
Yep. No argument on objections. I'll ask for sidebar if I want objection or if I want argument. The objection is overruled. You may proceed. Ask the question again so Mr. Williams knows what it is.
While you were there watching, was there a time when you saw Mr. Floyd lose consciousness?
That is correct. We refer to the fish. Yeah.
You were asked multiple times about being angry
That's correct.
and more upset as time went on.
Correct.
So why? Why did you get angry and more upset as time went on?
Because again, they were not listening to anything that I was telling them. I felt like I had to speak out for Floyd because he was speaking out to the officer, and there was no feedback, no emotion, no nothing. Like I literally looked in his eyes and had, as I'm talking to him.
I mean, I'll just stop you there.
We're going to stop the answer there. Next question.
What did you think was happening to Mr. Floyd?
He was under distress.
That answer will stand, but move on from that.
You felt he was in danger?
Correct.
In danger of what?
Objection, Your Honor.
Counsel sidebar.
And just a reminder, as we're having the audio temporarily disabled here for this private sidebar, there will be 4 teenage witnesses who will take the stand here during this trial. Again, Judge Cahill did rule that their audio will be played and it will be public, but their names, how to spell their names. That kind of information that they give in the beginning will be have the audio turned off, and also there will be no video of them over the broadcast here on this live feed. Again, this is a very unique case that Minnesota doesn't usually have videos and monitors and live feeds from the courtroom. We are listening in here to Donald Williams, who is an MMA fighter trained in mixed martial arts. He did witness Floyd's death as he was on the sidewalk trying to talk with officers. He was yelling at them to get off of Floyd. And he said he believes he was witnessing a murder. And so we do have him still on the stand here today. Again, he was on the stand yesterday as things kind of wrapped up for day one. And so he is our first witness we're hearing here on day 2 of the Derek Chauvin trial. And as we've been listening in, Williams has described watching Floyd struggle on the street under Officer Chauvin's knee, saying he saw Floyd's eyes roll back into his head. He saw him struggling, gasping for air, and saying that he believed he did witness a murder. He had also called police on these officers who were arresting George Floyd, saying he believed that they had not done the right thing here. They weren't listening to his cries for help to get off of George Floyd. And again, these private sidebars we don't get to listen into. These are private conversations, and the audio will be brought back up as soon as they are done speaking with the judge.
Mr. Frank.
So, Mr. Williams, why did you think it was so important that you were not being heard?
Because I felt like with the side choke, you lose consciousness, and I felt like he was in the process of losing consciousness also from the condition of my fish in the bag.
So
Is it overruled?
you can continue.
So like I said before earlier, he reminded me of my fish in the bag.
So let me ask it this way then.
The last no will be stricken about the fish in the bag.
And so then, I'm sorry. So you were concerned about Mr. Floyd losing his life?
Correct.
I have nothing further, Your Honor.
And you recross.
Very good. You were asked a series of questions on redirect about your experience in mixed martial arts, if you recall.
Correct.
Can you tell me about any of the conversations that you had as you were being rendered unconscious in any of your fights?
Your Honor, I'm going to object. You're stating.
What did you just ask me? What did you just ask me?
Just wait. Let me rule on the objection first. The objection is overruled. You may answer if you have a recollection as to any time. Ask the question again, but don't answer until I say so.
When you were engaged in mixed martial arts, in your fights, in your competitive fights, can you tell me, were you able to have a conversation with your opponent as you were being rendered unconscious? Yes or no?
We don't talk to each other, so no.
Nothing further.
Yes, Your Honor. You said earlier you're not a medical doctor.
That's totally correct.
If Mr. Nelson is asking you whether a person can...
Objection, Your Honor.
Stop. You're not allowed to give a medical opinion. Mr. Frank is going to ask you about your personal experience. If you have such a personal experience, you can talk about your personal experience. Nothing more. Mr. Frank, please phrase it in terms of his personal experience, not an opinion.
I will, Your Honor. In a mixed martial arts fight, when you are being rendered unconscious in a chokehold, you tap out, correct?
Correct.
And that's to prevent it from going too far.
Correct. Losing conscious.
And the tap out is the communication you use to your opponent to say, hey, let up.
That is correct.
And your opponent has to follow that communication.
That's correct.
That's the rules of the fight.
That's the rules of the fight.
And so when you tap out, they know it's done and it stops.
Correct. And only time you can verbally.
That's the answer to the question.
I have nothing further, Your Honor.
Any further requests? Thank you. Okay. Mr. Williams, you are excused. Thank you. All right. Members of the jury, our next four witnesses are going to be persons who, because of their age, I am allowing them not to